big day in Congress yesterday. And, but kind of the backdrop to all this is the shutdown and kind of the ongoing stalemate between the White House and now the House Democrats who are in power on that side. So what's the view from your point of view?
View is that the president wants to keep the United States safe and secure, and securing your borders is part of that. And every month it seems we have another caravan of thousands of folks coming from Central America here. And we can all sympathize people wanting a better life. But the fact is you have to be able to control your borders. And in those groups, there's those who are bringing drugs. There are potential gang members. There is human trafficking. The president wants to secure our border. It keeps America safer and secure. And I'm with the president on that, by the way. I agree with him totally. The congressional Democrats disagree. They don't want to give any more money to secure the border. They don't think that physical barriers make a difference, even though we've seen those coming here rushing to kind of overwhelm the Border Patrol. And that's where the impasse is. Pelosi won't send a budget, which has some money for it. The president won't sign it unless it does. And until that compromise is reached, we're stuck.
It's crazy, Senator, because, what we hear, and obviously we live in a very conservative part of the country. And so I think there is general support for what the president wants to do. However, the complaint we keep hearing, though, is that the president keeps getting in his own way because he keeps saying wall, wall, wall. Then people go into meetings with him. They come out. And Lindsey Graham even said, this is a metaphor. We're not talking about a wall. We're talking about a metaphor. Then the president comes about right again and says, no, I'm not saying that. We talk to folks like you, and I hear what you're saying right here with us. And then it's like sometimes it changes depending on who you're talking to. So is the messaging the problem on this?
The messaging is a problem. The president's rhetoric obviously allows Pelosi to kind of bow up and get away with it with her left.
Uh-huh.
But there are some places in which a physical wall is important. I went to McAllen, Texas a year or two ago, which is in Texas. It's the border between U.S. and Mexico, one of the checkpoints. There is a concrete wall through a portion of McAllen, Texas.
Mm-hmm.
And they say that's because when folks come across, we want them to go to the left or the right, because that helps us, makes it more likely that we can capture them. But this is Border Patrol speaking.
Yep.
And so a physical wall is present. There are other places in which there's a cliff, for example, in the Rio Grande.
Yep.
A physical wall is not important there.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, the president wants a physical wall in some places. And yes, in other places, it's going to be another form of border security. But still, the point is that we've got to keep America safer and secure. And one aspect of that is securing your borders. And that's where the impasses come.
As a GOP member of Congress, do you feel, I don't know, sometimes pushed into a corner a little bit by the president's rhetoric?
The president's a grown man. He's 72 years old. He's going to say what he says. And I don't kind of wake up every morning saying, oh, my gosh, the president's got me in a corner. No way, X-nay.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to acknowledge that if Pelosi wants an excuse not to compromise, the president's rhetoric gives her an excuse.
Gives her an excuse. It does. It does.
And it really shouldn't be about the rhetoric. It should be about keeping America safer and secure. And part of that is securing your border. And if you just put it that way, I think it's harder for her to retreat into, no, we're not going to do anything because of rhetoric.
Yeah. One of the most popular stories on our website yesterday was one about the IRS and the fact that tax day is still going to come in April, and you will still be required to pay by them, but you will not be getting refunds while this is underway. Is it a good sign or a bad sign that we're on this side of tax day?
Well, there's going to be 75% of the government is funded. And essential services, even if you're in an agency which is not funded, but it's deemed an essential service, that in the sense that it's important for safety, that still happens. But there will be some things that will suffer. And what you just described about refunds not going out, it seems like that should be computerized. But if it's not computerized, that's just, typical for the IRS. That's going to be something which falls by the wayside. Similarly, Coast Guard will not make as many inspections as they ordinarily would. You can find things where the 25% of the government is shut down, makes a difference. Absolutely.
Yeah.
On the other hand, the president feels like the only leverage he has to get congressional Democrats to the table to better secure our borders is through the shutdown. We can argue strategy, but that's his position, and so now we've got to deal with it.
I want to ask one more question about the shutdown, then we're going to move on. There's been talk about some of these departments, namely, I think people always just have a general problem with the Department of Education. The debate has raged on for decades and decades about, where a lot of these decisions should be made, especially when it comes to education. So a lot of folks have been talking about some of these departments, if they're not working under the shutdown, are we even really missing them? Do you understand what some of the people, especially taxpayers, would say? Maybe we don't need some of these. Maybe they are redundant departments. Is that something we should look at?
I think absolutely. If a department is redundant, get rid of it. Now, I will say that just because a grant doesn't go out this week as opposed to next week, doesn't mean that the department's not essential. So I'm not defending the Department of Education, but I am trying to give some perspective here.
Yeah.
But one thing I can say that Republicans have done as an example of that, we've actually increased funding for the National Institute of Health by about $3 billion since we took over the Congress in 1 year, and then we'd do $2 billion in another year. And we did it by shutting down other programs which are not effective, redirecting dollars from the ineffective to cancer research, for example. So absolutely we should be doing that as much as we can.
Let's talk about FEMA and flooding and national flood insurance. We are coming up. You know how it is down in Louisiana. By the time you pass Mardi Gras, you're preparing for hurricane season to start in June. What are the developments on that? I know you've been pretty active.
Several things. First, because of the shutdown, the National Flood Insurance Program was not going to write new policies for people seeking to purchase new homes. And my office looked at that and we said, you're wrong. And we sent them a letter. We reviewed the law. We reviewed the precedent. We said, we know you're wrong, and this is why. They agreed with us, and now they've reversed, and they are beginning to once more write policies for new homeowners, even though there's a government shutdown. So that's a victory. There is some issue as to whether or not the issue of duplication of benefits to put it simply, after the Great Flood of 2016, some people took Small Business Administration loans. They somehow, therefore, disqualified themselves from getting Restore Louisiana grants. We've worked with the administration to make sure that even if you got an SBA loan, you do have eligibility for Restore Louisiana grant, but the rules will now be delayed. They're supposed to come out by the end of January, might be delayed a couple of weeks, but we're still pushing to get that out. So someone who flooded in Youngsville, for example, will be able to kind of get that Restore Louisiana grant to finish making their life whole. There's some effort in consequence from the government shutdown.
Senator Bill Cassidy. Wow, a lot of stuff going on with Congress, and obviously the House, gavel changed hands yesterday. I know you have a lot of work ahead of you. So good luck. We look forward to talking to you more.
Hey, thank you.